This is the new face of Al-Qaeda, and its fighters are now on the doorstep of this capital, choking off fuel and food, sending residents scrambling and the U.S. Embassy evacuating. If the city of Bamako falls, the terror group could soon dominate the whole country of Mali.
It has become, with that scenario, a real possibility.
But what does the group actually want? And 25 years into the war on terror, how are Al-Qaeda militants still gaining ground? This Al-Qaeda branch is called Jama'at Nusrat al-Islam wal-Muslimin, known by the initials JNIM, or JNIM, seen here in videos released by its propaganda arm. Its roughly 6,000 fighters span several countries in the Sahel, where the Sahara Desert and the Savannah meet, including Mali.
They have connections with both the Taliban and Al-Qaeda Central in Pakistan and Afghanistan. So the connection is pretty deep, actually, despite the physical distance.
The heart of that connection is Iyad al-Ghali, once a whiskey-drinking, Marlboro-smoking tribal leader. Over 2 decades ago, al-Ghali gave up rock and roll and turned to hardline Islam. In 2017, he united 3 jihadist groups into JNIM, pledging its allegiance to Al-Qaeda. In nearly a decade since, JNIM has been at the front of a new wave of insurgency across West Africa. The Sahel is now the epicenter of global terrorism.
There were issues of governance generally in Africa, so not just in the Sahel, that led to a rise of the jihadist movements. And after Al-Qaeda had become largely irrelevant in the Arab Muslim world, it grew exponentially in Africa.
French forces, with U.S. support, started intervening in 2014, helping local governments successfully push back Al-Qaeda militants. But the group was never defeated, just contained. And local military officers, frustrated by the lack of progress, seized power across the region. A wave of coups that started in Mali in 2020. The new military juntas kicked out Western forces. In Mali, Army General Assimi Goïta instead turned to Russia and its Wagner Group mercenaries.
They decide to do a scorched earth policy, which is they go to villages, they say we're going to flush out Al-Qaeda, and even if we don't, we're going to spread terror, and it's going to become very difficult for Al-Qaeda to function. They'll have no support. The opposite obviously happens. Al-Qaeda's support increase. A lot of villagers seek support, protection from Al-Qaeda, and Al-Qaeda expands.
At the same time, JNIM was seizing gold mines, extorting villagers, and profiting from drug and human trafficking routes. It used those funds to gain ground, biding its time in the vast expanse of a country nearly twice the size of Texas. That moment arrived this summer, when Wagner mercenaries pulled out and Russia agreed to send a new defense ministry force.
The problem with that force is they have no experience of the terrain and they are inefficient. So the thing that JNIM did was they actually started to attack convoys, got really enormous amount of weapons, which we see now daily being seized, and that gave them the power and the strength to then start really going after the capital.
JNIM used those weapons not to assault Mali's capital, Bamako, but to siege it. The landlocked nation relies on imports, but with strategic attacks on fuel tankers, the group has strangled those crucial lifelines.
They saw that, the military cannot respond anymore because they don't have access to fuel. The military has, aircraft, helicopters, much better equipped. But you know what? If they can't fly, it's pointless.
Residents now spend days waiting for fuel, with lines clogging the capital streets. Blackouts have spread, schools were shut for 2 weeks, and food prices have spiked in a country already facing food insecurity. But in some rural parts of the country, where more than half of Mali's 24 million people live, JNIM maintains support.
Each party involved is killing mostly defenseless people. But the statistics say the majority are being killed by Wagner, the very force that was supposed to be, counterterrorism. Second largest number is the Malian military and their civilian allies, militias. Then Islamic State, and then Al-Qaeda. A lot of people thought, well, if I'm going to be killed, I may as well join the bad guys, because in this context, the bad guys to me are Wagner, they're the Russian, and their military allies.
Malian security forces continue to fight back, using drone strikes to pick off JNIM fighters, as well as raids like this one. But JNIM militants are agile, often seen traveling by motorbike in their propaganda videos, with control over rural areas giving them cover.
Every time they made some progress, let's say they carry an offensive, JNIM comes back and basically retake the territories. They created this very big spider web that surrounds the cities. Obviously the end game is take over, but you don't need to take over necessarily through door-to-door fighting in the city. That's not what asymmetrical insurgencies do. They just leave the regime to crumble, like it happened in Syria, like it happened in Afghanistan. And then when it's kind of rotten to the core, it collapses by itself. You just enter without a shot.
Down the barrel of JNIM guns, Mali's military leaders may be turning to the United States. Its foreign minister recently spoke to senior U.S. State Department officials who talked of, quote, greater cooperation. But the military junta is on the back foot, also battling an ISIS affiliate and separatist forces in the north where few people live. JNIM offered General Goita an ultimatum last month: implement strict Islamic law nationwide or relinquish power.
Or you have a political settlement where you introduce more hardline Islamic law into a country's government, and you kind of effectively ideologically and socially surrender to the jihadists without one bullet being shot in Bamako.
Some analysts say JNIM isn't capable of actually governing, but their effort to build an emirate has been expanding in neighboring Burkina Faso, Niger, and beyond. The question becomes, what risk will that pose to others? Just as al-Qaeda hid behind the Taliban in Afghanistan a quarter century ago, some are asking what may come out of Mali in the years ahead.
First, you consolidate, you take control of this territory and mold it under your vision of the world, of religion. And as we've seen in the past, it's only when you feel secure that you then start thinking about going after international targets.